Here's the spider. Let's change this to a candlestick, make it a little more clear. We are right near lifetime highs. We could well close at a lifetime high. Market's up strong right now, about 37.5 points on the ES. And so it goes. The psychology of the market gets a little weird as the year winds to a close, and of course, the new year begins. And of course, we've got an inauguration coming up on Jan 20. So there's all kinds of psychology at play right now. And the bullishness of the year is feeding on itself. It's a really fascinating environment. I mean, over the weekend, I was reading about like major stock movers based upon who showed up at the Army-Navy football game or something like that. So it's the basis for trades now is getting a little bit bizarre. Here's the diamonds, which for the, eighth day in a row? Red bar. We're getting a big split. I was looking at the cubes versus the diamonds, and they were lockstep for a while, but they have parted ways a couple of weeks ago. Techs are just flying higher, lifetime highs day after day. The industrials, kind of like late 1999, beginning to sputter. Now, the one ETF that I have a position in, because I took profits on EFA this morning, and I bagged SMH for now. So the one remaining ETF I got a position on is still doing great, which is Brazil. Talk about it every day here. Head and Shoulders is complete. The measured move is way down here. We'll see. We will see. But so far, so good on this. It's just doing really, really well. And the biggest component of this, PBR, although not nearly as clean a pattern, is definitely behaving itself and shaping up nicely to contribute to the demise of EWZ. So I'm really enjoying that position. China is down over 1.5%, and it's just a sad thing because last Monday, right here, it exploded higher on the news of trillions of yuan of new stimulus, adding to their already groaning pile of debt, and it worked for one day, and all those gains are gone, but the debt is still there. And it's just pathetic. There's no word. It's like having a good friend who just gets deeper and deeper and deeper into credit card debt. And, they've exhausted their home equity loan line of credit. They've exhausted all their cards. They're applying for new cards. They're getting more and more into debt just so they can keep up some simulacrum of a lifestyle. It's just sad. You're sort of seeing these ruination in front of your eyes because it's fake. Borrow to spend on things you don't need. And that's what we're seeing on a grand scale with the Middle Kingdom here. So, yeah, there's China. Didn't work. And they'll just keep adding more debt, and it'll just keep grinding away. This market peaked decades ago, which is extraordinary. U.S. hasn't peaked quite yet. We're sure doing a bang-up job of peaking, though. Stocks like Meta just flying higher day after day, up double digits again. Here's Alphabet, better known as Google, also up to a lifetime high, approaching 200 for the first time on a split adjusted basis, of course. And all this is flowing into the cubes, which themselves are up about 1 2/3%. I mean, this is just a sight. Here was the CrowdStrike internet crash low, August 5th. And so the cubes on there bottomed at 422. We're at 539 now. So that's what, a 25% gain in a few months on some already very richly valued stocks. So there we have it, a lifetime high. In a way, I feel like I'm watching all this from a safe distance because the kinds of positions I'm in, their constitution, for whatever reason, seems impervious to this sort of thing right now. And I will tiptoe into these crazier issues like in tech world when I feel it's right. But well-chosen stocks that can survive the blowtorch of this sort of rise, I got something good going on. Because if the market ever is allowed to dip a little bit, then I expect they will just crumble on their own weight. NVIDIA is falling. This used to be the leader, not sort of the I don't know if redheaded stepchild is yet a politically incorrect term or not, but I don't think there's a big organization of redheaded stepchildren fighting against that sort of thing, so I'll allow it. The head and shoulders pattern on this is working on getting done. And the bulls out there, which is 999,999 out of a million people, point out, not improperly, that the last meaningful head and shoulders in this did mean a thing right down here. It's not. It's actually, the shape of it's very, very similar. So I completely get that argument, and absolutely this could do the same thing. It could sort of tease everybody into thinking it's going to go down and then just fly the other direction. Because the last time it was going to break down, the stock was less than a third of what it is even right now. So again, the head and shoulders may not mean a thing, but so far so good. It's still doing the right thing at the moment, and it may well break down below the neckline. So stay tuned on that. I also think it's encouraging that in the face of hundreds of points on the NQ up, NVIDIA is just like shrugging its shoulders and going the opposite direction. So yeah, jury is out. NXP Semiconductors is another nice topping pattern. The stock's up for the moment. That is not nearly as, nobody's heard of this thing hardly compared to NVIDIA, but it's still a nice looking pattern that breakdown could contribute. As I said, I threw in the towel, and SMH took a tiny, tiny loss on this because I'm a little worried about the look of this. It's broken above its own rounded top. The next time I'll think hard about getting into this is if it pushes up against this broken trend line. As it is now, the other positions I've got are just doing too well to let this sort of direct stick around. So I've gone ahead and jettisoned it for the time being. One boat I missed pretty badly, which I told you about in advance, was SMCI, and it was fantastic. As I said, I believe on last week, we had a gap play here. It got a little above the gap at the open, but it's fallen from $48 to what it opened today, like at around 31. Big drop. So those gaps are working well, and all the brow wiping about, glad that's over, everything's going to be great with SMCI now, completely misleading. This was a tremendous rally, but all the nasty chatter back here might not be baseless. They were literally thinking about delisting it down here, delisting the thing, and now it's suddenly a champion again. No, there's something going on. Don't be so sure there's nothing. Stock doesn't fall that much on nothing. Bitcoin is continuing to have a grand old time. It's well into the six-figure zone here. It had been playing jump rope for days with that magical 100,000 mark. It seems, especially yesterday, to have put some sunlight between itself and that crucial level. So we're still, quite obviously in a bullish mode here. These sorts of things are very tough to call in terms of reversals. I don't go anywhere near this blast zone. It's just sort of interesting to watch from a distance. And of course, the big news on Friday after the close was MicroStrategy was welcomed into the S&P 500, which, if you had said even as recently as 2 years ago, when the stock looked like this, if you had said, all right, I'm from the future and MicroStrategy is going to be a part of the S&P 500, tell me how that's going to happen. I don't think many people would say, well, they'll become the largest Bitcoin holding fund on the planet, because this was a very unlikely company to be anywhere near the S&P 500, but they've done it. They've absolutely done it. And so this is way up here, not at lifetime highs, but in the vicinity. And so that was a big deal for MSTR. One sector that I continue to think is, I was talking about surviving the blowtorch of this bull market. Energy is part of that, because energy is definitely weak and exhibiting the behavior of something that will be very weak next year. So this isn't just a one-day aberration. This is a big movement, because this thing peaked back here. When was this? Back on not quite a month ago, but on the 25th of November. And we are still hammering out what could be a very formidable top here. Jury's still out on that one as well, but that's a pretty decent looking pattern. Much cleaner are the patterns within the energy sector. Murphy Oil, I mentioned all three of these last week. Murphy Oil's down almost 2.5%. Here's Occidental itself down almost 2.5%. And the one I actually have a position in, a much larger, more conservative play, ConocoPhillips COP, down a bit more than 1.25% and breaking below support. So we're essentially now at the same levels we were in the summer of 2023, in spite of the market in general being at lifetime highs. So that's looking good. Some of the monster tops continue to perform nicely. Cleveland Cliffs, mentioned dozens of times this year, down again 2.6%, looking toward this trend line as a target price. And Lumen, I bet I'm going to be mad at myself about this one, because I actually took profits on this morning for a couple of reasons. One, I'm so conservative with my trades these days that even March to me is like, that's too close for comfort. You know, we live in a world now where people trade 0 DTEs. With me, if it's like a 96 DTE, I'm too jumpy about it. So I like things with just, Mayan calendar length of time. So that's one reason. The other reason is because it's not a very clean pattern, because it had been, but we pushed so deeply into this pink zone, it's a little bit spoiled. But the thing is that if we slip back below that pink, this could go into a free fall, and I shall be not pleased with my own decision there. But be that as it may, it was a good trade. It'll probably continue to be a great trade, but I'm out of that. And there's a third reason too. As long as I'm letting myself off the hook, it's a $6 stock, and I really prefer stuff with some meat on the bones. So anyway, done with that. Tesla has reached its measured move target. I'd spoken of the mid 400s as a target. Strictly speaking, the measured move was at 460. We're above that now. Could keep going. The measured move in this instance essentially is the span of this green tint that I've drawn. Here's the base. And if you basically take this span and add it to the breakout, you get 460. And we're at 461 now. So I don't have any direct position in it myself, but it's nice to see that it hit the target. And like I said, it's lifetime highs. There's nothing to prevent it from going 470, 480, 490, 500, et cetera. And Elon will get more and more headlines because he's approaching a $500 billion net worth. Haven't seen that in a while. Since the days of Caesar, I guess. But yeah, Tesla's doing great. Rivian is doing well, although it had years of suffering beforehand, but it's doing pretty good. We're up 6.4% on this. Not all EVs, of course. Most EV-related stuff fell hard. Like, for example, Luminar, LAZR, down to a lifetime low, having fallen from about $700 to $6, so over a 99% drop. And ironically, the founder of this, I think, bought the most expensive residential property in the state of California back in better times, so he dumped all his stock. So a portion of his holdings, at least. But yeah, for the general shareholders, they're not living in that house.